Hello, today's video is going to be about writing equations of lines and parallel and perpendicular lines. Okay, so when we write an equation of a line in point-slope form, it's important to know what point-slope form is. So everyone needs to have this formula down on their paper and memorize. Remember, you get a note card for the test, so this might be something you put on your note card. So this is point-slope form. And if we are asked to write the equation in point-slope form of the line to the given point with the given slope, so I have the point 2, 5 with slope m, this is my x1. So the first thing I do is just label these x1 and y1, and that's labeled as my slope or my m. And then literally all I have to do is put my x where my x1 goes, my y where my y1 goes, and my slope where my slope goes. And then I rewrite the equation. Y minus 5 equals my slope, which in this case is 5, and x minus 2. Okay, let's try one more of those. We're going to have the point negative 3, 1, and the slope m is equal to negative 1/2. So again, just write this. The more times you write it, the more you'll remember it. So if I write that, and then I go over here and say, okay, well this is my x1, and this is my y1, and then I just put them right where they go. All right, and then I just rewrite it. I would just write y minus y1, which is in this case 1, equals m, which now is a negative 1/2, so I just write negative 1/2, x minus a negative turns that to plus 3. And that's all you have to do for that. All right, the next thing we need to talk about are parallel lines. So one thing we've learned in the past is parallel lines have the same slope. So again, that's something you probably want to write down or have memorized or put on your note card. So now when it asks us to write an equation of a line parallel, and they give us some line, and they give us a point, the only purpose they give you this line is to grab the slope from. So you go from what we learned yesterday to say, oh, I know then my slope is the number in front of my x, so I know that my slope is 3. So now this question is asking me, write an equation of the line. I don't even need this anymore, with slope 3 going through the point 2, negative 4. And now it's just exactly what we did on the last slide. Y minus y1 equals m, x minus x1. And then we just found that our new slope here is 3. So I'm going to plug that in for my slope. My y goes in for my y, my x goes in for my x. And now I just write y minus a negative, turns that to plus. And then I put my slope in there, which is 3, and x minus 2. Notice this negative 5 doesn't come into play at all, right? You're only using this line to figure out what the slope of your new line should be. All right, let's do one perpendicular. So perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. So if my slope is 2/3, then my perpendicular slope will now be negative, because that was a positive, and then you flip it, 3/2. Okay? If my slope is -6, then my perpendicular slope will be opposite, so now it's going to be positive, and you flip this, so 6 is really over 1, so now this becomes positive 1/6. Similarly, if I have negative 1/3 for a slope, then my perpendicular slope is going to be flip that fraction, so now it's 3 over 1, and change the sign. Since this is negative, this is positive. Okay, so now we're going to be asked, write an equation of a line perpendicular to y equals 2/3 x minus 7 going through the point 7, 1. Okay, again, the only reason they give us this line is so that we can correctly identify this line's slope, which is the number in front of x, which is 2/3, which now allows us to find our perpendicular slope, because we know we just go ahead and flip that. So our fraction becomes 3/2, and since this is positive, we also have to make it negative. And so now the equation goes right back to point slope form. I now have an m value. They originally gave me an x value, and I have a y value. Okay, and so then I just rewrite my equation. Y minus 1 equals -3/2 x minus 7. And we're done. Okay, the last thing that we'll want you to do is figure out if lines are parallel or perpendicular or neither. So if I have a couple lines here, and I'm asked to say, is that parallel, perpendicular, or neither? I look at their slopes. I say, okay, well, what's this guy's slope? 3/2. Is this guy's slope the same? No, so they're not parallel. Are the slopes opposite signs? No, because one's positive and one's negative. So they can't be perpendicular either. So this is neither. How about these two? Slope of this guy is -1, and the slope of this guy is +1. -1 is not +1, so they are not parallel because they are not the same. But -1, if I reciprocate that, for my perpendicular, it just flips to be 1/1 again. And notice the signs change. So these are actually opposite reciprocals of each other. So therefore, these lines are perpendicular. Now sometimes you might have to do what we did yesterday. If we have a situation where we have 3x plus 2y equals 6, we might need to go ahead and figure out if that's going to be what the slope is. So we have to go first and say, okay, well this is 3x. Move that over, and now I have 2y equals 6 minus 3x, and then I can go ahead and divide by 2. And so just like we did yesterday, now 6 divided by 2 is 3, and this is -3/2. And so you might have to go ahead and find the slopes of the lines if they're not in y equals form. All right, hopefully that's enough to help you with your homework. Feel free to ask us questions. Have a nice day.